You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Sam Jane. Michael House.
This week we are joined by Sam Csire, the most recent member of the Maryland Women's Volleyball 1,000 Kills Club. Take it away.
Thanks for having me.
So when you kind of look back, I guess when you started, when you came to Maryland, did you ever think you would get to 1,000 career kills?
No, that never really kind of hit my mind. I knew coming in that we were rebuilding this program, but I never really knew that 1,000 kills was a big thing in college, if I'm being honest, until one of the coaches was like, "Hey, you're kind of creeping up on that 1,000 kill mark," and I'm like, "Oh, I wasn't even keeping track." So it wasn't on my mind. It's just more so rebuilding this program, and obviously we've really gotten better. So here I am now, lucky to get 1,000 kills.
You mentioned kind of the rebuilding process. What was kind of the pitch for you to come to Maryland, and how did they recruit you here?
Well, when I was being recruited, I really wanted to go Big Ten, but I didn't want to go somewhere that was already big. I kind of wanted to go somewhere where maybe they were a little bit on the bottom, and I wanted to be a part of that process where our name kind of became to get known. And so at the time, I committed under a different head coach, but when Hughes joined, it was that same message. He was like, "Hey, I want you to be a part of it. You sit in the Ricks." And so that was just kind of a big thing for me. And then it's not too far from home. It's about 6 hours. It's a quick plane ride. So kind of all just matched up. And just being close to DC also is a plus. So
You bring up Adam Hughes kind of coming in here. What's your experience with him as a coach? What does he do best as a coach? How does he motivate you guys?
Well, he's a lot different than coaches I've had in club. In club, they were more so kind of all up on you, really pushing you. And with Hughes, he goes about it a different way. He does push you, but he lets you figure out kind of your process. He's not always there. He's not much of a yeller, which I think some people are like, that doesn't get, you don't get some improvement from that, but it's a lot of responsibility on us. And if you want to reach out to him and watch film and look at other coaches, they're open to do that. But I think he's just best at letting us kind of rock when we're doing well, and then if we're struggling in our hotel, or something, he'll help us out. So I think just leaving the process on us as individuals and how we can help each other.
You came into the program kind of when things weren't going so good, and you kind of stuck it out after playing in a very competitive club and high school team. How hard was it for you to adjust in terms of, going from a very winning ways to then kind of coming here where the Big Ten's a tough conference, and obviously Maryland has struggled in the past. What was that adjustment like for you?
I don't think it was terrible, just because I knew, like I said before, I knew what I was getting into and that it was a lot of hard work. And so just coming here, you're like, hey, right now, we're not where we want to be. I think I'm doing a lot of the same things I was doing out of high school, and I've learned a lot as well. I mean, tempo here is a lot faster than high school if we're talking literal volleyball. But as far as the vibes, everyone's attitudes, I think they was just very positive from the start, and that's what has helped us grow so much to where we are now.
You've kind of over the years at your career at Maryland, each season played a bit more and also improved a bit more. Can you just kind of talk about the path and kind of steps you took to, each season kind of taking a bigger role on the team?
Yeah. Obviously freshman year, I didn't play as much, which I expected. But what I did was I just took a lot of time with Hughes, and watched a lot of film. I said, hey, what can I get better at? What am I doing well at right now? And one of those things were serve receive. I was the best passer. In club, I might have been a decent passer, but when you get to college, it's a lot faster and it's a lot more flow on the balls. They need a lot on you. And so servicing was one of those things. And so I worked on it a lot, worked on my eye work with Becca and just different movements. And then a lot of it came from the weight room. When I was a freshman, I was just like a stick. Everybody was like, "You're a stick, Sam." Like, come on. And then even just looking at me now, I've been sort of saying similar structure, but I have a lot of muscle. So kudos to Greg, and he's the one was helping us in weight room.
You all are 3-1 at home so far this year. And you guys have talked about in post-game press conferences the effect, the crowd effect of playing in the pavilion. Can you kind of describe that for us?
I feel like you just have to be there to experience it. Everyone wants to be and have the arena where there's tons of, they're just so far from you. It's pretty pressure. I get a lot of pressure on me from the student section. For us, it would be the band. The band is kind of in everybody's ear. So it's really electric. And especially when, we had our Wisconsin game, a lot of people who were at the softball game were like, we could hear you guys from outside. And so everyone was just so supportive and screaming, and we're helping us, trying to get us to that win. And so I think a lot of it you have to do it to experience, but like we are so grateful for everybody that comes out in the band that's just chirping our team's ear, helping us out. So it's really amazing having the experience to be a part of.
In terms of, college women's volleyball atmospheres, do you wish you'd been playing Nebraska?
That, talk about pressure, that is just such crazy thing. I do wish I did play in that game. Just because we just made history. I wanted to be, that's a cool thing, especially for women's sport. And I wonder what it was like for them. I mean, was it tough knowing that there's a ton of people, or was it not because they were so far away? So it would have been super cool. Hopefully maybe one day we'll be able to play in our football field.
What would you say the most intense a crowd has been for you at a game? Any memories from that?
Most intense they have been has been that Wisconsin game, just because that was a few years into rebuilding, and kind of everybody saw that we were 13-0, but they thought, they haven't played much competition and they're probably going to get crushed. And then for us to come out in that Big Ten season opener at home and beat the number 2 team, I mean, everybody went crazy. She had a lot of students there. Sometimes when you have a lot of people there cheering for you, it also was kind of a lot of pressure, obviously to perform well and do your job. But I think that atmosphere has been the best that there has been since I've been.
And then you kind of talked about some of the mental side of it. When you're playing in the Big Ten, you're playing against so many ranked opponents, and you kind of come in as the underdog. Is that something the team kind of talks about? Like, we have a big chance to, make a name for ourselves, or kind of not shock the world, but, make a big statement against, many ranked teams on consecutive days because of the Big Ten schedule?
Yeah. I think that was the message about my freshman and sophomore year. And then now I think we know that we're able to kind of be at the top or in the middle of the Big Ten, that we can play with anybody. I was somewhere Ohio State or Purdue. It's obvious that, we're obviously good enough. And so now it's like, hey, we have Nebraska coming up, or we have Rutgers coming up. We take the same way. We don't say, this might not be as good, we should roll over them, or we shouldn't say, we're going to get crushed. Every game, we're just like, we're going to win. We're expecting to win, and that's what we're going to go out and try to do. So I think my early years here, it originally was, let's make our name known. And now that we have made our name known, it's kind of like, let's make our normal thing.
Kind of a non-volleyball question here, but I was researching earlier and I saw that you want to work with kids who have cancer. Kind of, how did you become interested in that as a career?
Yeah, so both my mom and dad are in the medical field. So my dad is a firefighter and my mom is a nurse. So I kind of interest, and maybe they want to do it. I'm not sure. And then when I was 13 years old, one of my best friends passed away from cancer. So kind of just seeing that process on what she went through, the sacrifices she had to make, and kind of the impact it had on me really sparks that, like, okay, I want to do it. And so I really got a tattoo for it. Like, I've done a lot of things this past spring. I hosted an event on campus with an organization called Get a Match. And basically we just try to go around campus, and students would have to swab inside their mouth, and then get into a registry where they would see if they are a blood match or a bone marrow match for a kid with cancer. It's $6. And I think about last week I got a call that she was a match. But the kid that she matched for wasn't sure if she wanted to do it yet. So I'm still waiting to hear about that. But that's kind of how that interest grew. It's just how I grew up and the experiences I went through. That's led me to kind of be where I am now.
You just mentioned that one program. Do you have any others that are coming up maybe this year you'd like to talk about?
I don't have any other organizations, but I am thinking about possibly doing another event with that same organization, Be the Match. They are doing things in fall, but just with how volleyball is right now, like there's just no time. They obviously know that. So I'm trying to figure out something within the spring. I want to make it a little bit different just so we're not doing the same thing. But hopefully it's fingers crossed in the works.
I was reading that you're sponsored by Zin Drink. So kind of what have these NIL opportunities been for you playing for like a non-revenue sport?
It has been so cool just to experience all these different kinds of things with the Zin Drink. I have done an interview with Csire where I would just talk to high school teams and they'd ask them about questions about volleyball, about injuries, because I've had a few. I had a book injury before I even got here in college, so I didn't know a lot of people ask that. I do private lessons with Arthur's. I think she's 13 or 14, or I don't remember, but I've been doing private lessons with her. So being able to kind of just spread be able to partner with someone like Zin Drink is like, yes, I get free drinks, but like also kind of put their name out there is super cool. And it's obviously a plus getting paid for it. I mean, and I know the football players or basketball players might be getting a lot of other deals for bigger brands, but for me, it's just like, what can I do? I feel like volleyball still is not as talked about as it should be. And so I'm trying to kind of get the word out, trying to help other kids get better, just do what I can. So it's been a really cool experience, just learning how to navigate through the NIL way. And it's been successful.
So to wrap up the show, we do a segment with everybody we bring on where we just rapid fire questions and first thing that comes to your mind. So
Okay.
do you have a favorite point that you've played at Maryland?
No. Well, I'm thinking about the most recent favorite one that I've had is actually just against Michigan. That I never hit with my left hand, but there was a crazy play and I kind of just hit the ball over with my left hand. Really weird, but it went over and was scored. So that was probably my most recent at least.
I feel like there has to be a reasoning behind this, but why number 44?
Well, my dad, he didn't play in college, but in high school, his number was 44. My brother played college basketball for a year or two. His number was 44. It kind of just fell in the family. Yeah, it was just in the family. My mom, I didn't even know if she wore it, actually. I think it was where my dad and my brother. I was just like, well, I'm going to bring a tradition. And it's actually funny because Eva, one of our freshmen here, wanted 44. And they were like, sorry, take it.
Do you have a favorite fan interaction?
I just love when I come out of the locker room and like it's high school team or the little girls just kind of so like we just get a picture. I love when I ask for pictures. It's like one of my favorite things, especially at camp too. I also give away like just for free just shirts I don't wear anymore, and seeing the smile on their face is just so cute. So I love it.
And then I think you mentioned it, but team goal for this year.
I mean, obviously our goal is to make the tournament, but I think right now it's just about being consistent and continuing playing our game, no matter who is across the net. I think we've done a pretty good job so far with it. But obviously everyone's kind of goal is to make the tournament at some point.
Well, thank you, Sam, for joining the show. We really appreciate it, and good luck against Rutgers.
Thank you guys for having me.
Well, you heard from Sam. Maryland had a good weekend here coming out, and Csire continues to dominate on the volleyball court. The Terps are looking to continue their winning ways, just as the Maryland football team is. Guys, another win, another week, another win for the Maryland football team, defeating Michigan State on the road in East Lansing, first road game of the year. Mike, what did you see out of the Terps this weekend?
They did what they had to do. They went into a conference matchup away, and they won the game. One thing I will say, though, is had a great start to the game, opened up scoring 21 points in the first quarter, kind of slowed down a little bit after that. Didn't score another touchdown until 3 minutes left in the fourth. If you're a Maryland fan and you're on the Maryland coaching staff, you kind of got to hope that this Terps team can stay explosive the whole game and not just kind of cut off after a strong start. But considering the starts that they had the past 2 games, that's pretty good to see.
Maybe I'm buying too much of what Coach Loxley is selling. We had Johnny Holiday on. We went to Terp Talk, so I got to hear Loxley talk a lot. But it's hard to win games on the road in the Big Ten. And I think for a team like Maryland, who's historically struggled in the Big Ten on the road, that game gives Maryland fans a ton of faith that they can maybe pull off one of the upsets that they've been trying to pull off for so many years now. So I don't know. I just think overall that game, coming out of the gate strong and just having a pretty solid defensive performance throughout the whole game, I think was a very strong performance.
We saw it from Maryland. We saw how dominant they were against the Spartans. We know that they're probably the 4th best team in the Big Ten East, at least currently, trailing Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. My question to you, though, is are the Terps the 4th best team in the Big Ten? The West is obviously not as strong as the East, with teams like Minnesota losing to Northwestern this weekend. Wisconsin already has a loss. Iowa got demolished by Penn State. The West is not a very strong division. So my question to you is, if the Terps are playing in the Big Ten West, would they be in Indianapolis at the end of the season representing Big Ten, the Big Ten title game?
By far. I mean, first of all, they have the best quarterback in the Big Ten. So that's the first thing you got to look at, the most important position on the field. And then they're also one of 4 teams that are 4-0. Like, I don't know. It seems like a pretty obvious question to me. Brendan, what do you think?
I think that Maryland would be playing in the Big Ten tournament, but I think they wouldn't do it in such a dominant fashion. I think that the other teams on Maryland's side of the conference aren't that strong. So it's hard to say. I think, having to play teams we don't have to play this year, if Maryland had to play Wisconsin and had to play Purdue, I think it may look a little bit different than it's going to look this year for the Maryland's record in the Big Ten. It is difficult, though, when, the top 4 teams of the conference are all on the same side.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with Brendan on that. I don't think that Maryland would coast to a Big Ten West title, but I do think, at least as it stands right now, they definitely do look like the strongest team. But the East does have some cupcakes. It's a very top-heavy division, and one of those cupcakes will be traveling to College Park this weekend. Indiana, who has struggled mightily this season, played in a triple overtime game, I believe, against Akron this weekend. Very interesting matchup there, and the Hoosiers are coming into this one as 14-point underdogs. But interestingly, guys, Bill Connolly's ESPN's S&P, which is a computer predictive model that's been around for a while, this is the biggest differentiator of the week between Vegas odds and ESPN, like the S&P odds. He has Maryland as a 21-point home favorite. Guys, what do you look at this one? Maryland should win, but what are you looking before the pivotal Week 6 matchup against Ohio State?
You've got to hope that they just continue to do the job like they did against Michigan State. They don't need to overcomplicate things. Just do the job, play strong defense, play good offense. Do not go down 14 points in the first quarter, and you get the job done. However, I do know that there is a family weekend curse going around the football program in recent years. Brendan, do you want to touch on what's going on?
I'd love to talk
Parents
about this.
are bringing unfortunate luck.
Maryland is 2-6 all time on family weekend in the Big Ten, and if you know anything about records, not good. The thing you got to think about, though, is they had their best chance to do it last year. I mean, they'd won 2 other games, but their best chance recently to get a win, haven't won on family weekend since 2018. Game they probably should have won last year against Purdue, and I think this is the year that they start winning on family weekend.
So as we kind of look at how this team has continued to play, guys, we continue to see the emergence of the offensive side of the ball, and the emergence of Colby McDonald, I think, will play a big part in this game. He's kind of been a home run threat. Roman Hemby was dinged up, according to Loxley last week, 12 yards on 10 carries. Woof. So you got to hope that McDonald and Littleton can continue to shoulder the load, but I think they should coast to a pretty easy victory, and they'll move to 5-0 before a big-time matchup against Ohio State that we'll talk about next week, absolutely. But the Terps are looking strong in Big Ten play, and they're outseeding program expectations, which is opposite of another Big Ten stalwart program around College Park, the men's soccer team. Guys, I don't know what is going on with Sasha's squad, but they have lost 2 conference games and have no wins so far. Brendan, what have you seen from this team? Why are they struggling?
Well said, Sam. Another tough loss going back this weekend against Wisconsin. Had a chance at a penalty kick. Max Riley hadn't taken a penalty kick all year, missed it, was the third one that they'd missed all year. A 1-0 loss in a game, we have a penalty kick is something that really shouldn't happen. Another game where playing very conservatively and just not generating enough chances. Just overall this year, the offense for Maryland just hasn't been able to produce enough goals, where last year a lot of the threats were, they lost a lot of the threats to pro soccer leagues, and so it's been tough for them. Looking ahead, like you said, Sam, Maryland, 3 games in the Big Ten, no wins. The last time Maryland did that, however, they still made the NCAA tournament. There is still some hope for men's soccer, but it's not looking great.
Yeah, I think that just to close on the men's team, I think that, it's just been a really struggle in terms of the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they really just get anything going there. And it's just been a slog fest in terms of how they play, which isn't usually how Sasha's teams perform. So you got to hope that eventually the gel will come, and that's what they keep preaching. But at some point, you have to win soccer games. Like you can't keep saying, "Oh, it'll come, it'll come." Like you're going to dig yourself too deep of a hole if you're Maryland. So they really have to work on that. But the women's soccer team, guys, I'm not going to lie, I've been really impressed by Megan Ryan Nemzer's team. Lost 1-0 to Ohio State, but if you paid attention last year, that's a lot better than when they lost 7-0 to the Buckeyes. I think a key change was moving Kennedy Bell, star freshman, definitely one of the team's top players. They moved her to the midfielder area, kind of that section where she can kind of play both ends a little more than her prior defensive side. And I think that generated a lot better chances and kind of allowed her to control the ball more. When I was watching the game, she definitely was touching it more, which is what you want out of your best players. And then they also switched up some more lineups, moved a midfielder to the back line, brought in Ava Morales earlier. I thought that it was a good game plan by Nemzer. And it didn't result in a win, but I think that, that's one of the better moves that they could make. And they'll get to put it to the test this week against Michigan State, who's one of the top teams in the country. They're not ranked, but they continue to be, a stalwart in the Big Ten play. Mike, as we kind of move forward in the season, the women's soccer team continues to outperform expectations. Do you expect that to continue, or do you kind of see this as maybe early season, not fluke, but early season momentum wave that eventually will fizzle out?
I'm not trying to hate, but I do think that this might be just some early momentum. And as we start to move into like deeper conference play, some of those tougher Big Ten opponents, I think you might start to see a little more losses coming. But not to say this has been very encouraging from Coach Megan Ryan Nemzer's squad. Like to see this type of improvement year 2, especially after they had a tough year last year, it's very promising.
Yeah, the one thing you got to look at is nothing kills momentum like going into a game against a strong Big Ten team, staying tied with them for 89 minutes, and then letting up a goal with 52 seconds to go like they did against Ohio State on Sunday. So big rebound against Michigan State, but that's just something that absolutely kills Maryland's momentum moving forward in Big Ten play.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Brendan, you're absolutely right. It was a great game, but you really, in terms of taking that, it seems like they've taken the step to becoming a competent Big Ten program that, they're going to be able to hang around. But then to get to the step to where you're actually beating teams, you have to be able to close the deal. And they didn't do that, even for a draw. So it will be interesting to see what they do here on their Michigan trip. But they're definitely better than last year, which is the subject of our next team. Mike, field hockey. Last year's team, this year's team. That's why we're gonna go through a little segment here called 23 or 22. And when it comes to Missy Maharg's squad, I'm gonna ask you certain questions about this year's team, and you're gonna judge which team you think fits better into the category that I lay out. So are you ready?
All right, let's go, Sam.
All right, Mike. So the first question I have for you is, which team has had a more challenging non-conference schedule, 2022 or 2023?
More challenging than non-conference schedule. I'll say this, the 23 team has lost more in their non-conference play, so I'm going to take 23.
Which team so far has had the more dominant offensive performances from its stars? This year, it's, Hope Rose has really been stellar. Last year, they spread it around more. But which offense has been more elite early on?
I would say the 22 squad. I mean, you had a bunch of graduate players on that team, had a lot of experience, were able to attack defenses. And of course, you brought up Hope Rose, elite goal scorer.
I mean, Hope Rose has just been off to a scorching start to the year, and she continues to play extremely well. And, that's one of the subjects of my next question. Which team has a better chance of having more than one All-American at the end of the year, 2022 or 23?
Probably 22. I'm not going to lie. Probably 22.
So you think that this is a Hope Rose pretty much?
It might just be
the net recognition.
It might just be Hope Rose, and that's it.
Which team is performing better in goal, 2022 or 23?
I'm going to say 23, just because in 22, they're still using two goaltenders like they did last year. But I feel like this year, because they switched between Christina Calandra and Paige Keefe a lot, Paige Keefe is the main goalkeeper for this team. They've had Alyssa Klobosco come in a couple times, but in reality, it's just Paige Keefe. It's consistent play.
Yeah, I mean, they've been really solid on defense so far this year. I think that they're allowing exactly one goal per game, which is, obviously a stellar spot in goal. And they continue to kind of have that strong tradition of goalkeeping, no matter which person is in the net. Last question I have for you, Mike. Which team is more equipped to beat the reigning Big Ten champs, Northwestern? Now, this seems like an easy question, but it's basically asking, is the 23 team prepared for a Big Ten title more so than the last year's team was?
I want to take the 23 team only because they have some people coming back from last year's squad who are going to be looking for revenge. I lost to Northwestern in the Big Ten tournament as well as in the Final Four last year.
Well, Mike, that was our edition of 22-23. Missy Maharg's team, it sounds like, is pretty on par with last year's squad, potentially even better. I think a little bit more spread out is kind of a by collective approach is what they took last year. And this year they're really relying on Hope Rose, obviously, to kind of be that star and then, bringing that veteran experience along. But they have a critical stretch here coming up. If you want to quickly take our listeners through what the Terps are looking at.
Right, so now we're entering the tough stretch of the season. We are entering into conference play. So on Thursday, they are facing number 7 Rutgers, and then they're facing number 16 Penn State on Sunday. This is critical because every single win at this point matters, because then it factors into your Big Ten playoff seeding. And of course, you do not want to be a lower seeded team and have to face somebody like Iowa early on, who's the number 1 ranked team in the country right now.
And the field hockey team is always in a strong conference for the Big Ten. We know about Northwestern. Iowa's taken a huge step this year, and they'll continue to be good. But that wraps up our Maharg. They have a huge week coming up, and they're not the only College Park team. We said it earlier at the episode, but the volleyball team is playing in a gauntlet of a conference. We know it. Brendan, they managed to pull a W off against Michigan, though, and a good win for Adam Hughes' team. What did you see from the squad, and what are we looking at here as the Terps schedule kind of gets into the meat of conference play?
Yeah, it was great to have Sam Csire on earlier to talk through her career as a Maryland volleyball player. Looking ahead, Maryland is traveling to face off against Rutgers today. This comes out on Wednesday, and I would expect Maryland to get a win. Overall, been a better team than them. Looking back, took a set against Purdue, and Adam Hughes, thought the team was going to push it to 5 sets. It was close in that 4th set, and they nearly had it. So Maryland taking sets against some of these ranked teams means I think we're going to see what we saw last year, which is Maryland's going to upset at least one ranked team, maybe 2 or 3 ranked teams throughout Big Ten play. And I do have confidence that this team is going to step up, leaning on Sam Csire as their number 1. And I don't know. Well, I think it'll be exciting to see what this team can do against the ranked teams in the Big Ten coming up. And the best way to continue that is to get a win against Rutgers.
Yeah, and as we head into the thick of Big Ten season, Adam Hughes' team is obviously going to look to continue their strong Big Ten play, and they're kind of rising in the top of the standings, just like yours truly is rising in our pick standings. Mike, tell the listeners what they all want to hear. Your boy's back on top where he belongs.
So Sam Jane, he had a great 3-0 week. So we are now. Brendan, he's still at the bottom of the leaderboard, but me and Sam, we're at the top right now, tied. So I guess, Sam, after your great weekend, would you like to kick off the picks for this upcoming weekend?
I'd like nothing more, Mike. We're going to start with the team that we talk about all the time, the Terps. I like Maryland to cover against Indiana. We talked about the S&P spread compared to the normal spread, so I like Maryland to cover. Then I'm going to go opposite of Brendan's picks. We got a little head-to-head pick action. I'm going to take Kansas plus 17 against Texas. He's shaking his head, but his picks have been terrible, so you should always tail Brendan myself. Finally, I have Colorado minus 23. I think the books are overreacting a little bit to the Oregon loss. USC's offensive and defensive lines are not as good as Oregon's. I actually think Oregon might be a better team than the Trojans, so I like Colorado to cover minus 23. Those are my picks.
All right, I guess I will go next. I got Kentucky minus 2.5 versus Florida. Kentucky is currently 3-1 against the spread, while Florida is 1-3. I really like those stats there, so I'm going to take that pick. Next up, South Carolina, the underdogs by 12.5 points against Tennessee. Spencer Rattler and the Gamecocks last year put up 63 points in that blowout win against Tennessee. I would expect the same offensive performance from him. Probably not as explosive, but still had a great game last year. Should keep that up this year. And then lastly, I'm going to take Georgia, favored by 14.5 points at Auburn. Georgia's the best team in the country right now. They have the best defense. The best team that Auburn's played this year is Texas A&M, and they lost by 17 that game. So I really like Georgia only being favored by about 2 touchdowns.
From the best team in college football to the worst picker on Under the Shell podcast, I will take Michigan minus 18.5 against Nebraska. I like that pick. Nothing else to say. A good old Big Ten battle. In the Midwest, Texas minus 17 against Kansas. I think Texas is going to just absolutely roll over Kansas. The hype is going to stop right there for Kansas. And then Fresno State, one of the best defensive teams in the country, minus 23 against Nevada, one of the worst teams in the entire country. You'll notice no UMass picks this week, but, can't always pick UMass.
You also can't always pick losing picks, but something that is not losing is our terrific Terp segment. Brendan Weissel always delivers week after week. And Brendan, take it away.
I had a different terrific Terp plan for this week, but to honor Mark Mandus, who passed away this past week, I thought I'd go with him to tell his story. So here it is. There haven't been many athletes to step on the field in College Park and get recognized in the Heisman conversation, but Mark Mandus was one of them. Growing up in Cumberland, Maryland, he attended Fort Hill High School, where his athletic prowess and recognition started all the way back in middle school. Mandus was the type of athlete that no matter what he tried, he was going to excel. In 1969, the Fort Hill JV basketball team went down to Washington Middle School to scrimmage the team that Mandus was on. The JV team at Fort Hill got the victory, but not before Mandus scored 52 points. His same 8th grade year, there was discussion about which team Mandus would start on next year. Would he play JV or would he play varsity? But all those questions were answered when he punted a football further than the current varsity starter. He would go on to be the starting quarterback for all 4 years. In high school, Mandus was a 2-sport All-American, in basketball once and football twice. In football, he got a bit better every year. Freshman year, he won 7 games. Sophomore year, he won 8. Junior year, he won 9. And senior year, he finally went the perfect 10-0. His senior year in 1953, he got injured in football season. So in basketball season, he missed all but the final game of the year. But that didn't matter. Mandus dropped 30 points against Thomas Johnson in the playoffs and guided the Sentinels to their most recent state championship appearance after a 12-4 season. If it had been up to Lefty in College Park, Mandus would have played basketball at Maryland as well, but he chose to focus on football. Following his successful junior year at Maryland, the 6'3" Mandus entered his final year as a Heisman Trophy candidate and graced over the cover of Sports Illustrated. Though a broken hand hampered his final campaign, Mandus was honored as first-team All-ACC, third-team All-American, and led the team to multiple top 10 rankings. He led it in all 4 years in College Park and was on 3 ACC championship teams as the Terps reeled off 21 consecutive conference wins to play in bowl games all 4 years. People around College Park still wonder what a senior season would have been like if he hadn't broken his hand and missed a few games. Mandus was a 4th-round selection in the 1978 NFL draft to the Los Angeles Rams, and he spent his lone NFL season with the St. Louis Cardinals, backing up pro quarterback Jim Hart. After his pro career, Manges also served as a color commentator on radio broadcasts back at Fort Hill or WTVO, and was a member of the stadium committee where he raised funds for scoreboard, new track, new sound system, and helped boost up the Fort Hill facilities. Manges is the only player in his high school's history with his number retired in 2 sports, 45 football, 43 for basketball. This week's Terrific Terp is in honor of Mark Manges.
Rest in peace, Mark Manges. Had a great career, was probably even better of a man. And that is another episode of Under the Shell presented by Testudo Times. Great interview from Sam Csire, and we look forward to next week's episode with you guys.
Guess what? You've got Under the Shell podcast. Nobody does it better.